As India celebrates 7 years of the launch of the Digital India program, the country is witnessing a transformational growth and adoption of innovations and digital technologies across sectors. CNBC-TV18 hosted Digital India Vision 7.0 powered by MasterCard to celebrate India's digital success stories, discuss the key sectors that are utilizing digital technology to scale up their businesses and deliberate on how technology can be further adopted and deployed in every sphere. Media and fitness sector experts converge for a power-packed discussion to delve on India's unique strategy of building public digital platforms across sectors, titled Public Digital Platforms Enabling Inclusive India Fast and Far.
Very good evening to all of our panelists, those joining virtually as well with us physically, as well as to all of our guests this evening. To begin this conversation, as the title reads, Digital India Vision 7.0, Mr. Singh, this question is for you. When we talk about Digital India, 7 years from when it began, India is currently home to the three largest digital open public platforms. So that's CoWIN, UPI, as well as Aadhaar. Are we there? Has Digital India vision arrived, or is this just the beginning? Mr. Singh.
I would go back to the day the Digital India was launched by Honorable Prime Minister on 1st of July 2015. And if you remember the way it was launched, the logo of Digital India, the tagline of Digital India says power to empower. So what Digital India has done in the last 7 years is that it has empowered people across the country. It has given them identity platform with almost 1.34 billion Aadhaar numbers. UPI, we all know more than 10 lakh crore worth of UPI transactions are happening every month. And then we even have small value transactions happening, which doesn't happen anywhere in the world. And CoWIN, of course, you mentioned as a third digital platform, but I would say that there are many more. CoWIN vaccination, we all know more than 200 crore doses have been given. But if you look at another of our offerings, the DigiLocker, for example, it has got like today 12 crore users, and we are adding almost 200,000 users per day. It has got 560 crore, 5.6 billion documents there, and it is facilitating seamless exchange of data, information, verification of documents without requiring to submit any PDF documents also. So like when you apply for a passport today, you can just authorize your DigiLocker to verify your documents, credentials, your date of birth, your address. You don't need to submit a PDF document also online. This is a game changer. It's being used for verifying academic credentials, health records. It's becoming part of the health locker and part of the National Health Authority. Then the e-Sanjeevani platform, the Diksha platform. So all these platforms are what they are doing is that they are offering various kinds of services, education services, healthcare services to people. The ONDC which is coming up, it will disrupt the e-commerce market all over. So what is doing, all these investments, all these projects in the digital public goods that we are building is empowering people in every way. But I would refrain from saying that yes, we have arrived and there's nowhere else to go. We have a lot many projects to implement, lot many people to reach. Digital inclusion is a very important subject that we are trying to address. We have a network of 500,000 common service centers, but to ensure that every Indian who does not even have a smartphone or who does not even know how to operate an app, how does he access services? So for that, on the Umang app, we have built in voice-enabled services. So the day when we will be able to access all public services through a feature phone, through a toll-free number, or speaking to an app, just like we speak to a Siri or Alexa, and be able to track our passports or driving license or ration cards, and then talking to the apps in the language of our choice. That day when we will be able to do that, then only we should say we have arrived. So there's a lot more things to do as we build on these projects.
Let's also get Mr. Satya Narayana in on this conversation. He's joining us virtually. Mr. Satya Narayana, if you can hear me, the question I want to ask you is that just along the lines of what Mr. Singh had suggested, there is significant economic potential to be unlocked. In fact, a recent study by NASSCOM suggested that the figure that we're looking at in terms of economic potential to be unlocked is north of $700 billion. So that's, those are the kind of numbers we're talking, very large numbers. Your sense in terms of the role that these open digital platforms will be playing going forward up until 2030 to unlock that economic potential.
Good evening to all the co-panelists and participants. Really, it's my pleasure to participate in this event virtually though. Let me step back a little bit to answer this question as to how to achieve that lofty figure in billions, which is potential at this point of time, but can it be made real? When we're talking of public digital platforms, actually, we need to differentiate three things which are being talked about. One is digital public goods, second is public digital platform, which is the theme of the session, and third one is digital ecosystem. Each one is increasingly bigger in scope and scale of operations and complexity. Digital public goods is about being open standards, open source, open data, open APIs, open AI models, and so on. Public digital platform is about delivery of public services. And the third is the highest in the ecosystem is the digital ecosystem, and the focus is on obviously on ecosystem where the public, private, NGO, civil society, everybody is coming together to make a difference to the stakeholders. Where the key word there is interoperability. So we have examples in the making in the health sector like National Digital Health Ecosystem, NDA in the education ecosystem, and IDEA, which is upcoming, which is in the agriculture sector. So to address the question of how to exploit the potential, we need to look at all the three. It's not that either or. We need all the three formats of digital transformation.
Mr. Koshi is also with us. Mr. Koshi, if I can get you in on this conversation, we're talking about concepts of openness, of interoperability, as Mr. Satya Narayana suggested. You're, of course, leading the charge for one such vertical, ONDC, taking forward. What are the major challenges going forward? We're talking about the likes of Microsoft, Snapdeal that have already come on board. But what are the challenges that you're facing in terms of the role that you see the private sector entities playing? And this, I'm speaking in reference to the heavyweights that we're speaking of in the retail e-commerce space. How much of a challenge is that in terms of happy marriage, so to speak, between an open platform like ONDC and some of the closed door facilities and systems like we have the e-commerce giants?
Thank you. Now, first of all, when we say open network, what it is attempting is to democratize. What does it mean? It means that everybody has the equal opportunity to present what they want to offer. Nobody can claim superior power because of the captive set of users in any side of it.
Sure.
So the scale ceased to be the lever, but innovation and specialization become the lever. So whether you are small or big, you have equal opportunity to be discovered. And if you have something really good to offer, then you get discovered more. Not because you have somebody who's always captive. So in that context, when ONDC enable large number of unbundled, specialized building blocks of commerce, let's say, when a buyer application comes, he says, my loyalty is only to my buyer to help him make the best buy. Let me go and buy whatever that is best for him. I don't have anybody seller I want to push. When the seller application comes, he says that, let me try to offer something really good so that people want to discover me.
Sure.
So there's no conflict of interest that is coming. So in that context, it becomes inevitable for everybody to join. When every buyers come together in the open network, the market become $1 billion plus. It's nobody's father's property. So now if somebody decides that I have a small group of 50 million people, he become irrelevant. Sure. So it becomes natural compulsion for current large players to come. When you say large, do they have a predominant market in India? No. We understand that the total market penetration of digital commerce is only 7%, and on the seller side less than 1%. So when it has to reach 50 to 60%, everybody has to grow, and then today's biggies become irrelevant if they don't cope up.
So if I've understood you correctly, what you're saying is that it's inevitable for even these larger companies to in fact come on board and be a part of the system. Is that correct?
Yes. It is inevitable because when the 7% penetration become 50% even, you need a lot more to come. You saw the same thing happening in UPI. And that, so it was not taking away anybody's market. It is collectively attacking a larger market as envisioned by the government and the Honorable Prime Minister, that all of us going to be digitally enabled. It doesn't matter big or small.
But Mr. Singh, last year you had given yourself a target. Well, look, in 2 years' time, all citizen-facing interfaces will slowly turn digital. A 2-year target is what you'd given us. We're nearly at the halfway mark. How far have we progressed? And what are the challenges that you're facing in terms of allowing for digitization of these interfaces?
Must say most high volume citizen transactions have gone digital.
Sure.
Like if you look into numbers, all digital services across the government of India and state governments are on the Umang platform. Umang had around 400 services, public services across central government and state governments around a year back. Today we have around 1600 services. So more and more services have added on. There are some states which are a bit slow in putting up, and we are working on bringing those services. But by and large, most services have come on the Umang platform. They have gone digital. What we need to do and what we need to work on is to make sure that the services are end-to-end digital. It's that one should be able to access service digitally and get the final outcome also digitally. And when we are getting the final outcome digitally, it should go into the DigiLocker so that it's easily accessible. But it should not happen that you just make an application and then it requires a online to offline kind of interface when you have to go physically somewhere. So for getting the services. So most services have gone digital to that extent. The real challenge that we are working on now is that how do we make it available in all Indian languages? Sure. For that, the Bhashini project is working on providing open APIs for ensuring that language interface is built in, because India has got 22 official languages, and till we make every service available in the language of a person's choice, it will not be truly digital. And the secondly, voice enablement of services, about which I just spoke about.
Even as we're discussing these digital services, it's important to keep in mind that the Aadhaar serves as the backbone as far as Digital India. Mr. Deshpande, a quick question to you, that as far as Aadhaar is concerned, it has been the backbone. It continues to be the backbone as far as Digital India services. My question to you is that the journey of Aadhaar has not been an easy one. It's been a tumultuous one. We've seen initiatives by the government, we've seen criticisms from civil society, and even as recently as just a few days back, there were criticisms that came forth with respect to the use of Aadhaar for vetting of electoral rolls. So just your quick thoughts on this journey that Aadhaar has had to undertake and what these criticisms have been, and your response to those criticisms in terms of use cases for Aadhaar. Mr. Deshpande.
So predominantly Aadhaar has been used as a place for keeping digital identity of individuals. And as far as the Aadhaar records are concerned, we provide yes, no, or eKYC type feedback to various applications that want to use it. Now, this is a very powerful mechanism where you now know who the individual is and you can track that individual. Basically, you can get that individual's identity for any application that you need. So a lot of how it gets used depends on the application, and there are several checks and balances that are there in the Aadhaar system to ensure that individual's identity can be protected. So I think there are ways to make Aadhaar very effective and useful for people to use while maintaining individuals' privacy.
But again, Mr. Deshpande, if I can get you back on that question, that while there are, government does say that there are inbuilt protections and safeguards in place, the question that has been put across as far as the use of Aadhaar is concerned, that should we just limit it to extension of government benefits? Or would it also be fair to take it a step forward for vetting of electoral rolls and other such use cases? That's the distinction that some of the critics are sought to make. Your quick thoughts on that?
See, the Aadhaar system on a technical basis allows you to do deduplication of records. That is the main advantage that Aadhaar can provide. So I think it's for the government or anyone else who wants to use it specifically for deduplication. Aadhaar tends to be very useful. Now, most of the data that is being collected in other sources does not necessarily have any, it just has a pointer from Aadhaar that allows it for deduplication. Aadhaar itself has no evidence or information about the electoral records or any other records that are being kept outside. So as a technical place where you can use this infrastructure for deduplication, Aadhaar is very useful. And to that extent, if it can be used in other places where deduplication is very important, then the Aadhaar system is well set for doing those kinds of things. But in itself, Aadhaar is not deciding where it should get used. All we do is to provide information about whether this person exists as identified by the Aadhaar system.
Mr. Singh, let me also get your thoughts on the same question here. I'm drawing your attention to the 2017 verdict of the Supreme Court, where it held that, in fact, the use of Aadhaar will be limited for public benefits, government schemes, but also at the same time, simultaneously, it declared privacy to be a fundamental right. So even as we are diving headfirst into Digital India vision, the questions that many ask is that, are we exposing citizens to some inherent risks, given as how we don't have a data protection framework in place? We were nearing one, but there were some apprehensions that the government felt on the startup front. And for that and for other reasons, it's been taken back to the drawing board. Your quick thoughts on the urgency that one needs to show in terms of having a data protection framework?
See, first and foremost, as far as Aadhaar is concerned, the usage of Aadhaar is clearly defined by the Aadhaar Act and the Supreme Court judgment therein, which says that it can be used for government benefits, number one. And number two, voluntary use of Aadhaar is permitted, wherein the consent of citizen is taken for whether he wants to give his Aadhaar for any public service or not. So that debate is very clear. When it comes to with regard to the risks that are associated with Aadhaar, I would say that in spite of lot of doubts being raised and speculation being raised by vested interests, so far in the last 11 to 12 years of Aadhaar's existence, we began in 2009 and the first Aadhaars were rolled out in 2010. In the last 12 years of Aadhaar's existence, there has not been a single breach of Aadhaar database, and there has not been a single instance wherein anybody has lost anything because of any flaw in the Aadhaar architecture or Aadhaar database or other systems. In the same time, there have been many other systems built by the best of the IT companies of the world. There has been breaches, there has been data loss, there has been data theft, there has been identity theft, all kinds of things happen with the best of the banks, with the best of the public platforms. So Aadhaar is fully secure. Aadhaar has offered lots of services, just direct benefit transfers. More than 25 billion rupees of direct benefit, 25 trillion rupees of benefits have been transferred through direct benefit transfers. In the pandemic, we were able to do this easily. I was in a panel with CIOs, global CIOs, and I was told that the United States, the so-called developed country, is struggling to track the pandemic checks that they issued to as pandemic relief. They gave $400 billion of pandemic relief through paper checks and plastic checks. And they're not able to track where it went. So Aadhaar is fully secure. It has resulted in a lot of benefits, fully voluntary. With regard to the need for a data protection bill, yes, we do need a data protection bill. But having a data protection bill is not the solution of all the public service delivery issues which are there. It ensures that everybody who is dealing with your data is made accountable, and you have a right to know who is using your data for what purpose.
Being a part of that Digital India mission, you've given yourself a target of hitting 100 cities, growing organically. How far ahead have we come in that roadmap? And how much more time will it take for us to hit that target of 100 cities in terms of ONDC? And what are the challenges that you're facing in doing so?
Let me put a context slide for you. See, the way ONDC is set up, it's a network.
Sure.
Network means there has to be multiple entities coming together to transact among themselves. There's no central platform. In a normal conventional launch of a bank or a stock exchange or anything, there could be a central platform which is 80% is in your control.
Sure.
Whereas when you're creating network, you're giving them a language and a grammar and tell everybody to talk. So then it would mean that the one way to test it is to get organically grow more and more people talk. And the scope of ONDC is very, very broad. It could cover commerce, it could cover services, it could cover, even in commerce, there could be on grocery on one side and fashion on the other side. All those things has to happen. So it has to build up. So to make sure that it happens organically, we took up the most challenging part of it. The last mile, which is very challenging, is grocery and food. And we said, let's do it in a very small and steady fashion. Let's first look at 5 cities across the different parts of the country and bring some sellers, some buying platforms, logistics together to transact in a controlled environment. And Since it is to have participation for many people, we said now after having started in 5, let us try to keep on adding those numbers. Because when it comes to grocery, it has to be hyper-local. You know, you can't buy atta from Delhi to Bangalore. Atta in Delhi has to be delivered by a merchant in Delhi. So similarly, we said, let us try to, that is why we put ourselves a target of going broader to have catalyst in every town. Then in some other places we're already again, we are going deeper.
Sure.
So it is not about this some number, because eventually, you know, in grocery, you need to be hyper-local. Let's say in fashion, you know, I can be in Delhi and still supply in Bombay. So it will be, so that way the city presence become relevant. What we are showing that we will demonstrate across some buyers and sellers, and we are getting fantastic participation from big and small in becoming actively integrating their system.
Right. Mr. Koshi, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for as a part of this panel. It's been a very interesting discussion talking about these open digital public platforms. And what's interesting is that the messaging from the Ministry of Electronics and IT is quite clear. In fact, taking this a step forward, growing from strength to strength, what they're suggesting is that we will develop a framework, the government will develop a framework to take some of these digital solutions that are made in India and to take them global. The idea being that Industry 4.0, India is hoping to lead that charge, and some of these open digital platforms, one expects, will play a big factor in that role that India is trying to take forward. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of our panelists who've taken out their precious time and shared their insights and perspectives with us. It's been a very informative session for us. There's much to learn, and this is an exciting space. There's a lot of action. We hope that we continue to reach out to you and you continue to indulge us with such interactions that will help us benefit from your insight and your perspective. Thank you once again for joining us. A very good evening to all of our panelists once again. Thank you so much.
In the next episode, industry captains and policymakers come together to deep dive into how the adoption of disruptive technologies and innovative business models will enjoy an upward growth trajectory in a panel discussion titled 5G to Foster India's Decade.